Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey, good evening. Happy Monday evening, folks. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Scotty Roberts, of this here, my show, the Intrepid radio program. And we are broadcasting over on YouTube as well as Instagram and Facebook at a couple of different places. And pretty soon, we'll be broadcasting with Rocky Stucci's network. That's coming up. So stay tuned for that. Hope your Monday has been good so far. Hope you had a good weekend. And I'm going to get rid of this graphic. Boom, do that. And look at me. I have been running like a chicken with my head cut off today. And so here I am, looking rather wind-tossed and all of that stuff. You know, you used to not have to worry about how you looked on radio, but since we do the simulcast in video, which is all we are now because we're just a broadcast, that's what you get to see. This is who I am. This is where I am. I had a good time with friends last night. Rainey is out in Alaska right now. She's been there since this last Wednesday morning, and they're going to be there for 2 weeks. She took our 12-year-old Rowan with her. They've gone salmon fishing in Alaska. So if we're lucky, we might get her to call into the show tonight. We'll see what happens. I sent her a quick message after she messaged me, and I said, why don't you just call into the show? Give us all the reports on what's going on, how the fishing went. There's a picture she sent that I have not put up yet of she and Rowan way out in the river, and they're holding up a big old salmon. That thing has got to be, that big. And so they are having a good time from what I can see so far. More salmon coming soon, Rudy Dog. That's right. Welcome to the program, Rudy. And Roger Rabbit, welcome. Good to see you. Who else we got? Randall Flagg, Jason Patrick, and Elderberry is here. How you doing, Elderberry? Did I see Carly's name? How's Carly doing? Oh, no, you're asking Roger. Yeah, how's Carly doing? Have her come in and say hi, too, at some point tonight. And all the rest of you, thank you for being here. All of you who are out there, I can see by the numbers, there's a bunch of you out there, but you can all call in. But then again, if you all call in, that chat room is just going to go clipping by. So call in if you got something to share. Dial into the chat room and join us over there. So thanks for being here, and let's move on from there. I do want to mention tonight, I'm talking about storytelling, and I'm talking about the importance of storytelling to our culture, to our heritage, to our families. Now, I'm bringing this up because I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories. When I am not reading stories or writing stories or making presentation about my stories, I'm telling stories all the time. With my friends last night, what did we do? We sat and told stories to each other all night long of all of our antics and our experiences and our friendship and the different things we face every day. And for my children, this is going to be a little point that we're going to get into a little later, but telling our stories to our kids, telling our stories to our family, telling our stories to our circle of influence, the people that we, and it doesn't always have to be, poems and prayers and promises and things that we believe in, sitting around the campfire and getting high and all of that stuff. It can be the storytelling that we do on a daily basis. So we do on our holidays, we do when we're together. And Rudy Dog says, you're right, Rudy. True stories telling about our history. I just pulled these in. Most of my regular listeners, these books. I just grabbed a couple of my fictional books to say, these are books that I use to tell stories, not just fanciful stories, but they've got messages in them. The Sword and the Clay, The Rollicking Adventures of Tam O'Hare. These are stories or books that tell stories. As you know, in the Sword and the Clay, I'm recounting the true story of Will Byrd and what he wrote about World War One, his experiences in World War One. In Tam O'Hare, while it's a fanciful, anthropomorphized tale using rabbits and woodland creatures in anthropomorphized in human clothing and ships and buildings and castles and real people in history, it's also a story of maybe this will turn you off a little bit, but it's a story about me. It's the idealism that I see. It's not specifically about me. It doesn't mention Scotty Roberts by name or any of my particulars in my life, but it was a book that I wrote about the nobility, the elements of nobility that I strive for, the elements of my idealism of maybe a little too much perfectionism, the things that I see myself as being that everybody else can link into, latch into, understand from their points of view, told against a fanciful background. So when we tell stories, we're telling stories for a reason, to pass something on. Let's say you don't fashion yourself or see yourself as some kind of a storyteller out there in the sense of defining what a storyteller is, but we all tell stories every day. We could have what maybe you feel you've got a pretty common existence. You go to work, you come home, you eat dinner, you watch a movie, you read a book, you do this, you do that. But the stories that you tell when you get together, oh man, you should have heard what happened to me on the way to work today. The cop pulled me over and there was this and that, or this guy at the grocery store. And many of us relate a lot of negative accounts of things that go on in our lives. Those are the stories we tell. Oh man, I can't believe this guy who cut me off. Or man, I had this tax bill come and I called the tax guy and I spent 2 hours arguing with him about this. We all have our stories. But have you got stories that shape for your children, your progeny, your descendants? You're the ancestor to be someday. What are the stories that you leave behind? I know when I have talked about journaling, which I don't do very well, I've said this radio show tends to be more my journal over the last 20 years than anything else. You can look back at any point in time and see the things I was thinking and what I was all about. All the things that I have archived on these websites, should that all fall, I've got them all archived on disc too. So all of those shows, that's the stuff of who I am. I express some things that are outside of me, and I want to express those things. And I express a lot of what's coming from inside of me. And I tell my stories. I tell my ghost stories. I've told my divorce stories, my marriage stories, my relationship stories, my children's stories. I got a story for you tonight. They're up there. I was gonna use a naughty word, which I can do on this show, but they're all messing around up there, making noise, arguing. I step outside to get a breath of fresh air, and I'm reading my messages. And every time I do that, yesterday I did that in a 15-minute period. I had both of my kids come out. The one came out 4 different times. The other one too. I'm like, can you guys just give me a break? Leave me alone for a couple of minutes. Can you not handle this stuff? Now, see, that in and of itself is a story. And then I like to tell stories to my kids that hopefully touch on all those points. Tam O'Hare, he came from telling stories to my oldest, my twin daughters, when they were 7. I told these stories, and then I finally wrote the book. These are things, they're idealisms that I want to pass on to them. Nobility of heart is something I wanted to pass on to them. So all of this stuff is the stuff I want to be talking about tonight. There's also the kind of storytelling that I would put in a totally different category. I went outside to look at the news on my phone and get away from kids bumping around and doing gymnastics on the wooden living room floor above my head and all of that. And I'm looking at a couple of news stories, and I read the way people talk about our politics. and the different politicians, who's running against who. And each side has massive amounts of stories, and they're doing storytelling. And I thought, if most of these people would just tell what is, as opposed to worrying so much about that guy. There's some guys I see online that all they do, they're there for the sole purpose of stirring the pot because of their celebrity or who they may be or might have been. And they're out there trying to, they tell stories in one-liners. And people, I see all these sycophants and all these weirdos and frankly stupid, ignorant people who don't take 2 seconds to do any critical thinking, passing on this information. Those stories get spread and spread and spread and spread. And there's storytelling that's going on right now around us in our political world. Everybody wants the power. Everybody thinks they have the right answer. I will tell you this, I don't think Kamala Harris has the right answer, but I think she's the machine behind her is doing what she's not doing. They're telling the story. They're actually reshaping the story of who she is so she doesn't have to. Why do you think, and I'm lapsing a bit political here, but why do you think she hasn't had a press conference with open questions from the press since she has been inaugurated as the replacement for Joe Biden? She didn't win a single vote in the primaries, but the delegates that were given to Biden because he won those in their primary, those all somehow got magically given to Kamala. She didn't have to do a thing. She doesn't have to answer the questions. I saw a clip today where they asked her a question, well, what would you do about inflation? And she was absolutely stumped. The answer was this word salad, which we've heard associated with her a lot, that went round and round and round, talking about, well, people have, gas prices are higher, and so is the price of bread and milk. And inflation is because, people have less to spend, and she never answered the question, what are you going to do about it? She doesn't know. She hasn't the slightest idea of what to do. She is being sold to the American public. And how do you sell a politician? You tell stories. And what have they done? They've taken the story that she has written by herself with her experience and with her persona and with her past, and they are now rewriting that story so she doesn't have to go out there and explain it. And she's got a compliant press that's doing that. The other side, Trump's been Trump. I see Trump being Trump as Trump is Trump. I don't see him rewriting his story. I don't see him backtracking. Everybody's talking about J.D. Vance, how he's rewritten his story. He's the same guy. All he's done is said he's come out to support Trump. He's also come out and said his view on abortion has changed. He said, I've changed my view on abortion. I don't feel exactly the same way I did before because I've thought about it more and I put more time into it and effort. So even in politics, is the point I'm making, you get storytelling to sell us. That's the kind of storytelling I think we all get a little tired of. But everything is storytelling. I got this little book, picked this up at the $5 store the other day. Spiritual Places. I bought it because I enjoyed the artwork in here. And my daughter, Rowan, wanted to have something painted on her bedroom wall. And as I was flipping through this, I found something that was kind of like what she said she wanted to see. And I showed her the picture. I said, what about this? And she goes, oh, I like that. I said, maybe I'll see if I can do something like that on your bedroom wall. And I was flipping through here to see if I can just even see it. Now I don't see it in here. And it was the first thing that I saw when I opened the book. So, it's things like this, this really simple, you see the trees back in there and how simple they are. She wanted to have a simple color on her wall with floral patterns like that on the wall. And I said, well, I'll do that. And I picked up this little book. I was flipping through it, and it's all about spiritual places around the world. And it tells stories about these places. I love that for that reason, That's going to be a fun little book to read to people, my kids. And so right now I'm working on some illustrations for elderberry. And I've got to look up their historical illustrations, and I've got to look up all the information about them, because as I start drawing, I think, well, wait, what does that look like? There has to be a story behind this real life event. Otherwise, I'm just creating a cartoon of something. I don't want to do that. I want the picture to be accurate historically. So I go and I want to see what the clothing looked like, what the armor looked like, what the weapons looked like, things like that. They're military illustrations. And in two different eras. One is over 1,000 years ago, about 1,000 years ago, medieval, and the other one is set in Revolutionary War era. So, which I'm a little more familiar with, how things look. But there are stories that are told, stories and pictures, stories and artifacts, stories that are written down about these events. And so, Susie Q, you always come in, then you always leave to go eat a bite. Good to have you here for a few minutes. We'll see you when you get back. So, and speaking of timing and things that maybe good timing, Rainey, if she calls in, she's 3 hours behind us. So it's about 6:20 p.m. in Alaska right now. And so we'll maybe hear some of her fish tales tonight. So all of that other stuff aside, I want to really hone in a little bit on storytelling. Storytelling, as I saw one author put it, as a pillar of meaningful life. And why is storytelling a pillar of meaningful life? Family storytelling weaves lives of connection, of purpose, of meaning. But what else is storytelling? When you go to, say, cultural or historical storytelling, what's that all about? Storytelling is as old as our culture. Many societies have these long established storytelling traditions. The stories and the performances then function to entertain as well as educate. You can tell a story about something, and you can take a very serious topic in your history or about your cultural bit, your heritage, your people, your family, and you can bring humor into it. And it's all about taking the details and not so expanding the details so that it no longer is a true story, but embellishing in the sense that you're able to tell a story using all different kinds of vehicles and methods to relate that message. And as Professor Bauer so aptly says, storytelling is the art of cunning linguists with tangled tongues. Yeah, there's that kind of storytelling. Which brings up a thought. When you're meeting somebody for the first time, we may want to be honest, but we're telling stories. Do we tell them, the nasty stories about, hey, you've never met me before, and I kind of like you, and I'd like to get to know you better. And as we're talking, let me tell you these heinous stories about me. We don't usually do that. We tell the stories that mean something, that build us up, that give a good picture of who we are. I remember one of the first things when Rainey and I started dating. It wasn't the very first 5 minutes, but a couple of weeks in, and maybe a couple months, and we felt like we were starting to get serious. I said, "Hey, I got to tell you something I haven't told you up to this point. I might not be able to father kids." That laugh is from me for right now, because I already had 3. I had my twins, and then I had Sam. And I only had those children. It was funny. My doc told me I couldn't have kids. I was at about a 2% optimum of males to be able to have and produce children. Well, then I had 2 at once. And I thought, these are God children. These are children that God said, okay. He keeps asking, give him 2. And then 9 years later, Sam came along. And so it was interesting. I mean, that's my story of my kids. And then I met Rainey, and I thought the likelihood of us having kids, I said, is slim to none, even though I've got children. And so what happens? We get serious, and within a couple of years, we got 3 kids. Bing, bang, boom. Bing, bang, and boom. So when you meet people, you're showing them your representatives. Pretty much, Professor. He asked that, and he said that in the chat room. So Sweet Nancy was so fancy, says Randall Flagg. Starting of a story, I'm sure. And so all the things that we talk about with our friends, with our compatriots, sometimes with people we don't even know, it's all about telling stories. I used to do events, ghost hunting events, paranormal events, and I'd get up. One of the last big ones I spoke at, I spoke about the Exodus Reality, that book. And I spoke about John Ward's and my adventures in Egypt. And then, of course, some of the experiences we had. It all folded into that. And so I got up there and I started talking about going to Egypt. How many of you here have been to Egypt, the land of the pharaohs, as Manetho put it, the land of the gods, the demigods, and spirits of the dead? I started that way. So storytelling is sometimes just relating your facts, relating the things you know, relating your day-to-day, what might seem to you to be the drudgery of your day or the commonplaceness of your day. And we're sharing those things with other people when we get together. So we're all storytellers. It's all how we get by. It's all how we set the meaningful gauge on our existence. And so I want to look at storytelling culturally, and I want to look at it familially, because I think there are different kinds of storytelling. And then, of course, we all know fictional. The other day when I did the event at the library, which was last Thursday, and did we do a show? No, we couldn't do a show Friday. I did a show on Sunday, but I went to the library event last Thursday here in our town. And we had about 20 people, and then adults and kids. And I found that most of what I write is not for little kids, even though some of it could be kid books. It's not for little kids. Tam O'Hare, story told with animals, but it's a story that appeals more to middle school and up. So middle grade, young adult and up. So Zahi Hawass scares you, field guy? So you stay out of Egypt? Zahi Hawass. Egypt is safe. It's safe. Come, travel, see Egypt. I like Zahi Hawass. He doesn't scare me, though. So storytelling is as old as our cultures, as old as our heritages. And there's all these long established storytelling traditions around the world and in all these different cultures. They're there to entertain us. They're there to educate us. And storytelling is it's universal. It's as ancient as humankind itself. And before there was writing, there was storytelling. It occurs in every culture from every age. It exists and existed to entertain, to inform, to promulgate cultural traditions and values. You know, sometimes we see in certain circles I'm in, we've seen these wall paintings and cave paintings, mostly the old wall paintings, and they date back tens of thousands of years. And there's no script written with it, like paragraph 1. It was a dark and stormy night. Doesn't say that. It's all pictures, pictographs. And in some of those, I know in the whole cryptid, paranormal, ancient alien arenas, they show these pictures of all these little human stick figures, but then there's the one big one with a big round head and antennas coming out of it. That's obviously aliens. So the question I asked once was, is this story that they put on that wall, was it a story of what actually is out there, or was it a story to tell a story? The way I would do a book like this was their book, The Wall of the Cliff Face, and they're drawing a picture story on there. Did every picture that get put up there have an innate meaning that was something that was important to their culture and their traditions? Or there's sometimes stories being put up there that were important to their tradition? Was it the story of, if you go past here, you'll find these big beings, so don't go into the places you ought not go? Oral storytelling. That's telling a story through your voice, through your gestures. The oral tradition can take on all kinds of form, including epic poems, chants, rhymes, songs, and more. And not all of these stories are historically accurate or even true. Truth is less important than providing cultural cohesion. And it can encompass myth, legends, fables, religion, prayers, proverbs, instructions. These are the things that, when you start comparing, say, biblical texts in Judaism, Christianity, how much of that is like other cultures that told their religious stories through prayers and poems and songs? We've got all kinds of songs that we sing in the Christian tradition, especially nowadays. And there was a song I used to sing with my kids and the kids when I was in the youth group. It was a simple song. It said, when the universe fell from his fingertips, he decided he wanted some fellowship. But the man and the woman would not submit, so he made a better way. When the moment was right, he sent his own son, who would open the way so that everyone could have hope and believe that when time was done, he'd be able to make us one. And the chorus went, to hear with my heart, to see with my soul, to be guided by a hand I cannot hold, to trust in a way that I cannot see. That's what faith must be. And then the song goes on. And I sing it because I love the little song in that. And it's a song about telling about your faith, telling about your tradition, telling the story of why you believe what you believe. That's what we do with our stories. I got some examples from different, just a couple of different cultures. This is a method of passing down cultural traditions. Look at the Choctaw storytelling. Now, like all Native American tribes, the Choctaw have an oral storytelling tradition that goes back generations. Think of, by the way, Lakota. Think of Reuben Fasthorse and the stories he would tell us here on this show. Remember the Milky Way? He told it a couple of times, what the Milky Way was, and the tattoo on the back of your hand, and what the old woman at the fork in the Milky Way would ask you after death. So these are all religious traditions that were passed, or spiritual traditions passed on in their stories. Now, in the Choctaw, their stories were intended to preserve the tribe's history, to educate the young people in the tribe. For example, the Choctaw oral tradition includes two creation stories. One relates to migration from the west, and another to creation from a mound. So in addition, the oral tradition includes history as well as life lessons, moral teachings. And so many of the Choctaw traditional tales employ animal characters to teach such lessons in a humorous vein. You use the animals, much like I did with Tam O'Hare. How about the native Hawaiian storytelling? Native Hawaiian word for story is mo'olelo. 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 See if I can say that right. Mo'olelo. Mo'olelo. But it can also mean, that word can mean history, legend, tradition, and the like, words like that. It comes from two words, mo'o, meaning succession, and olelo, meaning language or speaking. Thus, the story they're telling is a succession of language. And so, since all the stories were oral, native Hawaiian stories included the tale of the first Hawaiian, who was born from a taro root. And other stories tell of navigation across the seas. Think of Moana. I love that. I love the music in that story. And it wasn't until very recently I found out that the story of Moana, the actual story from legend, took place about 2,000 years ago. So when you're seeing that, you're not seeing that. You think of the time of Captain Cook because of the grass skirts and things like that, and Hawaiian or Polynesian, and it's a much older story than that. Traditionally, native Hawaiian storytellers who knew the history and the genealogy were honored members of society. Hawaiian storytelling wasn't limited to just the words alone. It included talking, but also encompassed mele, or song, M-E-L-E, mele, song, oli, O-L-I, chant, and hula, which is dance. And think of the hula dancers. Basically, you're saying dance, dance when you say hula dance. But the Hawaiians valued the stories because they weren't only entertaining, but they also taught the next generation about behavioral values and traditions. Now, whether you like them all or not, look at some of the Disney animated movies of the last 30 years. Now, what came out 30 years ago? You believe it or not, The Little Mermaid came out 30 plus years ago. The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, and you start going through Aladdin, all these different stories. Every one of them had somewhere in their messages that they wanted us to learn, that they wanted to teach. I loved in The Lion King. It was so moving. My daughters were 3, I believe, when that came out, 3 or 4. And I took them to see The Lion King. And I may have told you this story before. And we're sitting in the theater, and they were small enough that they were both sitting with me. So I'm leaning back. They're both leaning back like this on my shoulders, watching this movie. And I'm just holding them there. And it was such a great film, such a great message. And I remember the scene where he sees his dead father. Simba sees Mufasa in the pool, and it's Rafiki, the old baboon. Look harder, he tells him. And he sees his father in his reflection in the water. And then he sees his father in the sky. You are the one true king, and basically he's learning in that story. He's abandoned what he is. And the ghost, if you will, the spirit of his father in the sky, as it's fading, it says, remember who you are. That's good storytelling. And that's a message that got across. Remember who you are. Don't forget who you are and where you come from. Such a great story, and so well told in that setting. That's what these stories do. How about Western African storytelling? The peoples of sub-Saharan Africa have strong storytelling traditions. And in many parts of Africa, after dinner, the village congregates around a central fire. That's their television after dinner, to listen to the storyteller. As in other cultures, the role of the storyteller is to entertain and to educate. Man, what a great job that would be. I think in If I wasn't the chief in a tribe like that, I would want to be the storyteller, to get up every night and tell a story. As I was walking through the brush, and, the hyena was there, and the lion was there, and the baboon was there. And, you make up a story as you go. And then everybody, we'll finish this tomorrow night. We have a cliffhanger tonight. After dinner tomorrow night, we'll tell the rest of this story. But a long part of Western African culture are the griots. Why did I roll my tongue on that? I don't know why. I was trying to say griot and enunciate that. Griot. It's like riots with a G at the beginning. The griots, the storyteller, the troubadours, the counselors to the kings. They perform the functions of storyteller, of genealogist, of historian, of ambassador, and more. And some of the most famous stories from Western Africa are those of the Anasazi, Anansi. I mix it up with the in my head, the Anasazi, the Southwestern American, Native American tribes, the Anansi, Anansi, the trickster spider. The stories of Anansi, the trickster spider. And, it's kind of funny in Lakota, some of the parallels, they had Iktope, who was the trickster spider. Interesting. But the griots are traditionally hereditary. It's a profession or an office passed from one generation to the next. And there's the great griot schools where more formal training could be had. Both men and women can take up the profession, and women are called griots, and the men are the griots. And it's Grottes for the women. And just imagine, what if this was your family? This is what you did. It was your family were the storytellers. And what if Monty Python comes to mind? But Father, I don't want to tell stories. I want to sing. Stop that now. Stop it. Those of you who are familiar with Monty Python, that will go right to the core. So, are you talking to me, Elderberry? Did you say I sent you a story song on Messenger? Let me look. Was that to me? No, not to me. Oh, yeah, maybe to me. Oh, the Battle of New Orleans. Yes. Yes, I know that song from a long time back. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to have to listen to that again. It's been a long time since I listened to that. But there are some songs that are stories. There's one I would sing for my kids. It was a little morbid is not the word. Some of you may have heard it. It was played by a couple of well-known Irish bands over the years, but the band played Waltzin' Matilda. It starts, when I was a young man, I'd carry my pack and live the free life of a rover. From the Murray's green basin to the dusty outback, I'd waltz my Matilda all over. Then in 1915, my country said, son, it's time to stop your roving, there's work to be done. So they gave me a tin hat and gave me a gun and sent me away to the war. And the chorus says, the band played Waltzin' Matilda as our ship pulled away from the quay. And amidst all the tears, flag waving and cheers, we sailed off for Gallipoli. And it goes through this whole song. It tells the story. It tells the story of the war. It tells the story of this particular battle. It tells the story of this particular man, whether he is a real man or a fictional character written for the song. And, there's the one I've sung about. We heard this first with the Highland Regiment. What were we doing with the Highland Regiment? We were dressed in our red coats and our kilts and our muskets and our swords. And we were reenacting the history of the French and Indian War, specifically a regiment that we made up, and we were part of this regiment. And we would tell stories, and we do this for educational days at events and all kinds of people. And we'd set up camps at rendezvous. And there was a song we heard played by Tanglefoot. You should go look this up, Tanglefoot. And the song was Vimy, Vimy. It's about Vimy Ridge. And it's that song about a man who's singing about the loss of his two friends at Vimy Ridge. And he starts by singing, how's it go? He talks about how a woman with a golden ring comes and some people come to see me in my bedroom with faces dim and names I can't recall. Some woman with a golden ring, she comes to comb my hair. Then she dresses me and walks me down the hall. I can still put one foot before the other if someone points the way for me to go. Outside the sun is shining and there's people gathered round. They put circles of red flowers on stones. And that's all done a cappella. And then he's joined in a cappella harmony. And it says, raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream, I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg, and I will end my days in Montreal. Jimmy Radcliffe stood before me in the tunnel, spat on his bayonet and wiped it with his hand. He rocked from heel to heel, blew out his cheeks and whistled while we waited for the order to advance. Jimmy Radcliffe was only 20, and we called him an old man. He said he'd fathered children by the score. My girls back home in Winnipeg and girls in Calais. And he swore by God there'd be 100 more. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream, I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg, and I will end my days in Montreal. Billy Whitefish from Kenora, jet black hair and eyes like coal. We all called him Chief behind his back. He never smiled or laughed or joked or said that much at all. He just lit a smoke and waited to advance. They threw shells over our heads into the hillside. In 30 yards our kit and boots were full of mud. When I could see again, I was alone. Jimmy wasn't there. When he made the ridge, Jimmy went down on both knees. Then he coughed into his sleeve, and there was blood. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream, I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy, you Jim in Winnipeg, and I will end my days in Montreal. The last sound I ever, let's see, I'm jumping ahead. Billy Whitefish from Kenora wound up in a German trench where he captured their machine gun all alone. And he held them off until his ammunition was all spent. Then they swarmed around and they hacked him to the bone. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream, I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy. You Jim in Winnipeg. And I will end my days in Montreal. The last sound I ever heard was an explosion. Bodies flew like apples thrown by boys at play. When I could see again, I was alone. Jimmy wasn't there, and a crater marked the hillside where he'd lain. You can see I messed up the song because Billy Whitefish from Kenora wound up in a German trench where he captured their machine gun all alone. And he held them off until his ammunition was all spent. And they swarmed around and they hacked him to the bone. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream, I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy. You Jim in Winnipeg. And I will end my days in Montreal. Now every day I still remember what I told them. My two friends who that day from this earth were torn. Now the craters and the trenches where they died will bear the names of the cities and the towns where they were born. Raise your flask, aim your rifles high. I've had a dream, I've seen we three should have no fear at all. You'll die in Kenora, Billy. You Jim in Winnipeg. And I will end my days in Montreal. So this, I didn't plan to sing that whole song, but that is a form of storytelling in song. It's relating the story of what happened at Vimy Ridge via the story of this man singing of the two friends that he lost that day. And the story behind that song is the group Tanglefoot was asked to come and sing at the Vimy Ridge Monument, the dedication. And the story behind that is that they named all the craters and the trenches that are still there today were named for the cities and the towns of the boys that died there. And that's what that last verse was about. So, this to me is the strongest part of storytelling. It's you tell your traditions, you tell the stories of your history. What about the Jewish people and the Passover Seder? On Passover, all the families of Jewish faith, they celebrate the exodus of the Jewish people from slavery in Egypt. And the Passover celebration includes a storytelling ritual known as the Seder, or the order. And during a meal, the story of the Exodus is told. It's an oral tradition that's passed down through the generations to educate the young. It's an important part of the ceremony is the 4 questions that are asked by the youngest children present, which are the impetus for the telling of the story so the children can participate on what they've learned. You've got Irish storytelling, the Shunke, it's Gaelic word, Shunke, were the traditional Irish keepers of the story. And they'd travel from village to village, reciting ancient lore, tales of wisdom. They told the old myths as well as local news and happenings. They were prominent in the Irish oral tradition, and they were the tales of the kings and heroes. Did you hear? Um, do you know what an Irish boomerang is? An Irish boomerang. You throw it out, and it sings sad songs about coming back again. So, today, storytelling and interest in storytelling appears to be making this comeback. There's one Irish storyteller who put it this way. He said, "It's a need for a connection." He says, "I think storytelling nurtures connections with people in real life." That's what it does, for certain. But what does it do in our families and the meanings that we pass on to our children, that we pass on to our loved ones and people that we know? Family storytelling weaves lives of connection, meaning, and purpose, just like the historical stories do for our culture, for our society. A little closer in, they weave the stories about our families. Ah, Elderberry says, don't forget in the chat room, don't forget the professor wants to get an earlier start of the captain's cabin. Yeah, right. I know. He's going to have to wait a little bit. We'll get there. But listening to other people's stories, that helps us to tell our own stories in new ways. Storytelling is one of the pillars of building this meaningful life because stories are at heart all about meaning and connection. Family storytelling weaves lives of connection, meaning, and purpose. I've got a story I am writing on the side. It's as I get to it about my grandfather's experiences in World War II. My grandfather, as you know, because I've told the tales before, my mom's stepfather, he was Hungarian Jew, American, but his parents came here. He was born in America. And he was in World War II, fought in Patton's Third Army, and he went AWOL from Patton's Third Army to see if he could find any remnant of his Hungarian relatives. And he went out on foot across Germany and into Hungary, and of course learned that they had all been deported on the trains to the death camps. So there's value in telling these stories. I want my kids to know these stories. My grandfather is not our blood, but he was my mom's dad, and he was my grandfather growing up. But is there more to life than being happy? Let me ask you that question. There's a reason I'm asking that. That's a question that was posed by Emily Esfahani Smith. And she asks this in her book, The Power of Meaning, Finding Fulfillment in a World Obsessed with Happiness. So, building on the tenets of positive psychology, Smith argues that whereas happiness is fleeting, a momentary state of feeling good, building a life of meaning creates an enduring sense of well-being. So, how are we going to build this life of meaning? Smith suggested 4 pillars: belonging, purpose, transcendence, and storytelling. The first 3 make intuitive sense: a sense of belonging through loving others, being loved; a sense of purpose, that one is accomplishing something in their lives; and a sense of transcendence, or simply being in the moment. And these have been written about in philosophy, psychology, self-help literature for years. But storytelling, how is storytelling, do you think, a pillar of a meaningful life? Now, Smith, in her book, she focuses on stories we tell about ourselves, how we create stories that explain who we are and how we became this way. What the psychologist Dan McAdams calls a narrative identity. Narrative identity weaves our various life experiences into a coherent story that not only links experiences into temporal and causal chains, but creates meaning through the expression of values and ideals. We can change our stories. We can create stories that affirm positive values and create meaning and purpose. But for many of us who have faced obstacles and challenges in life, changing our story might not be as easy as it sounds. And how do we create positive meaning and purpose from experiences and hardship and stresses that we go through in our lives? I think as I'm speaking, the thought came to mind. I just watched the movie because I enjoyed it. The movie A Knight's Tale. Remember that story with um oh, what was his name? Heath Ledger playing the now late Heath Ledger, of course, playing a young squire who takes on the role of the knight. And it's based very loosely on Chaucer's A Knight's Tale. And it's fanciful. It's an updated version of medieval jousting and knights and so on. But it's updated in the sense that they use more common language and music and things like that to tell the tale to a younger audience. And it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. But in there is that line that came from his father. His father sent him to work away because his father was poor, a poor thatcher. And he sends his young son, who couldn't be much more than 8, 9 years old, to become the squire for this knight. And pretty much under the understanding in those days, he'd probably never see his son again. And he tells his son, he tells him that a man can change his stars. He says, if he works hard enough. And yeah, my kids love that movie too, Susie Q. They really enjoyed it. And this is, I don't want to give away the movie if you haven't seen it or elements of it that make it meaningful. But there is a scene where that comes up again in the movie, talking about changing his stars or changing his story. I don't have to be what I was. I can make changes. I can do something different and change who I am. Now, Smith, in her book, in her own story, she points to a way. In telling her story, she relies on the stories of 2 other people. She tells the story of a young football player who was seriously injured and initially told his story as one of loss and desolation, what McAdams calls a contamination story. And the things were good and now are bad. But this young man changed his story through personal reflection, reframing. His story became one of finding new values, of discovering his purpose in life as a young mentor, and what McAdams calls a redemption story. Good things came from the bad. It's like, have you ever heard George Lucas said that his the arc of his first 3 movies, stories in Star Wars, he said, I could look back and rename that The Redemption of Anakin Skywalker. It's a redemption story. Now, Smith tells the second story in her book about her father, who lived a simple life as a carpenter and a Sufi. And when he had a massive heart attack and needed surgery, he was going under anesthesia. Instead of counting down from 100, he counted off the names of his children because this reminded him of his purpose and his meaning, his reason to live. But how do we reframe our experiences to be redemptive? That Smith finds a way forward and a way to frame her own story through the stories of others underscores that our own stories aren't solely our own. Our stories are interwoven with the stories of others. Through hearing, listening, sharing others' stories, we come to tell our own stories in new ways. To reframe our own stories to create more redemptive meanings. Research from the Family Narratives Lab indicates that family stories, stories of our parents, our grandparents, may be especially effective in providing models of how we live a meaningful life. Adolescents and young adults who know more stories and more coherent and detailed stories about their parents growing up and their family history show higher levels of self esteem, less anxiety, yes, higher levels of meaning and purpose in life. And why might this be? It's because stories are how we understand human experience and make sense of what can sometimes be senseless events. You know, I've mentioned him a few times before. My friend who was falsely accused of rape almost 5 years ago now, I think 4 years ago. It happened right during the Judge Kavanaugh hearings, and the height of the Me Too movement was when this was all going on. And it's falsely accused because it was a false charge. But the things he dealt with, the loss of career, the loss of everything, because one person made up a story. Well, they were pushed by another person. It's a different story. That's his story to tell. But he was finally exonerated. If that's the proper word for that. He went to court and won. They found him not guilty. The case dismissed for many, many reasons. Primary among them being the story was false, and it all broke out during court. So he's a friend of mine. He's always been part of what I would call the upper echelons of how would you think of a Garrison Keillor and what he was like? My friend had that same kind of persona. In the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, he was well known. And that all went away because of a false charge of somebody before he'd even been tried. And now he's in the process of, it's a difficult process for him, but writing a book about this, doing podcasts. He's putting a story together. We were talking about this. These were the friends I was out with last night. We talked about some of this. And how is he going to pass this story on? They don't have children. He's a little older. He's a couple of years older than me. And but he understands. He's writing this story to better understand his experience from the inside out and to let other people know who will read this what his experience was like. It's his story. He's providing a coherent framework to put it into. So, getting back to how families work, even when families might not always be getting along the way they should. This is the family in which one is embedded and has shared a life, the one that tells their stories. When adolescents hear stories about family members struggling with difficult times, challenges, obstacles, they learn that life isn't always about the good times. It's about striving for something better, fighting for beliefs, overcoming the odds. And I cannot help but read this quote to you again. This from The Lord of the Rings, that picture there on the wall back there that my daughter Bryn drew for me. And I've read to you before this particular right here. They wrote out this piece from the books for me. And I'm going to read that again because it's strong and it's powerful. It's about stories. Frodo says to Sam at one point, it's at the end of the second movie, The Two Towers, but it's in the book, The Two Towers. And he says, Sam, I can't do this. She's carrying this ring. And Sam says, I know. It's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's all a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. Frodo says, what are we holding on to, Sam? And Sam says, that there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. That was the movie version. There is a book version that goes like this. Yes, that's so, said Sam. And we shouldn't be here at all if we'd known more about it before we started. But I suppose it's often that way. The brave things in the old tales and songs, Mr. Frodo, adventures, as I used to call them. I used to think that they were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for because they wanted them, because they were exciting and life was a bit dull, a kind of a sport, as you might say. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered, or the ones that stay in the mind. Folk seem to have just landed in them. Their paths were laid that way, as you put it, but I expect they had lots of chances, like us, of turning back. Only they didn't. And if they had, we shouldn't know, because they'd have been forgotten. We hear about those just as just went on, and not all to a good end, mind you. At least not to what folk inside a story and not outside it call a good end. You know, coming home, finding things all right, though not quite the same, like old Mr. Bilbo. But those aren't always the best tales to hear, though they may be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of tale we've fallen into. I wonder, said Frodo, but I don't know. And that's the way of a real tale. Take any one that you're fond of. You may know or guess what kind of tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know, and you don't want them to. That's that scene in the book. So, in kind of wrapping this up, storytelling is one of the pillars of building a meaningful life, because stories are at heart about meaning and connection. Our personal stories live within a world of stories, stories of distant others, friends, and family. We can create a meaningful story for ourselves because we have meaningful stories about others as models and inspirations. And in telling our stories, we help others create meaning in their lives. And it starts in the family storytelling, even of the mundane experiences of our lives. It weaves lives of connection, meaning, purpose. Happiness may come and go, but our stories are going to live forever. So what is your story going to be, folks? What are the stories you tell? Who hears your stories? For now, we're going to get out of here. We've got the captain's cabin coming up in a few minutes. We're going to take a little break, and then all of you meet right back here. Just don't go away. We're not changing the channel or anything. Just going to have a little break going on. And so sit tight. If you got to go, live long and prosper. And if you can stay, we'll see you in a few.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave.
I don't know. Let's remove. There. One sec. Comments right there. Comments. There. So, what's that? Anyway, Dad had to go use the bathroom, so I'm here now. Yay. I don't know what to say. Hi. Hi. Susie Q. Thanks. I was watching Descendants before this. Descendants. I'm rotten to the core, rotten to the core, rotten to the core. Who could ask for more? Nothing like the kid next door. I'm rotten to the core. Well, I was singing for them. I was singing for them.
I heard that. She's singing her life story, rotten to the core. So, sing us a song, says Elderberry. You got another song?
Yeah.
Sing another one.
Yeah. Scooch over.
Scooch over.
Scooch. Okay.
I'm Scooch.
Thank you.
Easy.
Here. Well, I'm gonna sing the whole song.
Go.
And here you are alone, and you deserve it. Your friends have turned to stone, and that's on you. You had a cause to serve, but did you serve it? Did you see yourself in a way that wasn't true? Why tell all those lies? You feel unworthy, like there isn't solid ground for you to stand. The sacrifice is not a firm foundation. You can't build a castle on a mountain made of sand. That's all I'm gonna sing.
There's not more than that?
There is. That's just all I'm gonna sing right now.
Why?
Because I want to.
Because she wants to. Okay. So you just gave us a concert, but you cut off midway?
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
I
So
think
there you
I
go.
can sing another song.
Okay. Well, go.
They say
Okay.
they say I'm evil. Wait. They say I'm evil. They say I'm mean. How can they say that? I'm just unique. A dirty no good. Down to the bone. A worst nightmare can take me home. So I got some mischief in my blood. Can you blame me? I never got no love. The past is past. Forget. But the truth is, you ain't seen nothing yet. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the baddest of them all? Welcome to my wicked world. Wicked world. I'm rotten to the core, rotten to the core. Rotten to the core. Who could ask for more? Nothing like the kid next door. I'm rotten to the core. And then it's just instrumentals after that.
Instrumental after that. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. Take a bow. All right. Those were songs from, if you did not recognize them, folks, it's because you don't have little kids. That was from Disney's Descendants.
I've been watching that like my whole life.
Yes, she has.
Yeah.
And it's a movie of, it's live action. It's of all the children of the Disney villains.
And the royalties.
And the royalties, too. So there you go. So she knows all the songs because she watched it 300 times. All right. So let's move on with the captain's cabin, guys. How is everybody tonight? You got any stories to tell? You want to call in and talk stories? What?
Where's your phone?
Where's my phone? In my pocket. Why do you need my phone?
I just need your phone.
For what?
I need your phone.
All right. So great job, Ellery, but you need to show her some better music. Oh, Sean, this is pretty good music. She's exposed to all different kinds. This is just the musicals she likes. This is the Disney villain kids and how they reform and all that stuff. So it's pretty good.
That's the only music I will ever like, and I'll never stop liking it. So yeah.
So there you go.
You'll never hear you'll never hear any other music from me.
Oh yeah, that's what you say now. So
you can shush. That's forever.
So there you go. So yeah, that's what Ellie does in her spare time. She learns music, learns songs, and that's not her entire repertoire, but it's good. Fair enough. Says Sean. There you go. Yeah. She knows all kinds of stuff. So what else we got? I'm kind of done with my show. With the topic of my show, I could just go on and talk more about it. But what do you got? What do you guys want to bring to the table tonight, if anything? Come on, let me know what you're thinking. And otherwise, we won't go too much longer. So we'll give you an opportunity to share what you think about storytelling, about the stories you tell, or if you just want to call and talk about a story of your own. Now's your forum. You got a time. Come on in.
I sing another song.
What song do you want to sing now?
Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. Do you know the whole song?
Yeah, I got right here.
Okay. She wants to do one more song for you. So, Sean, I got to tell you, I understand where you're coming from, Sean. I like Disney because I like the creativity, not because I like the politics. So, here.
I sing more songs.
One more song. That's it.
2 more songs.
One.
Thank you. Here you are alone, and you deserve it. Your friends turned to stone, but that's on you. You had a cause to serve, but did you serve it? Did you see yourself in a way that wasn't true? This is not your father's fairy tale. And no, it's not your mother's fault you fail. So when your story comes to light, make sure the story that they write goes, once upon a time, a girl tried harder. Once upon a time, she tried again. Once upon a braver choice, she took a risk. and that's how, and that will be time. This time, I tell all those you feel unworthy, like they're and it's not a foundation. You cannot build a castle on a mountain made of sand. This is not your mother's dark desire. And no, it's not your father's hair on fire. Turns out it too is not awake. So if there's change you wanna make, take once upon a time she fought a dragon. Once upon a time the beast was me. Once upon a misspent youth, she faced herself, she spoke the truth. That's how I see my once upon a time. This time, life is not a storybook, but life unfolding chapters. Turn the page and start to make amends. There's no pre-written guarantee of happily ever after. Step into your greatness before the story ends. So when the story ends, still say, once upon a time, a girl threw higher. Once upon a time, she made things right. Once upon a tie that binds, she changed her heart to change her mind. That's got to be my once upon a time. This once upon a time, I finally see my once upon a time. This time.
Very nice.
I know.
All right, you know. All right. Okay.
I sing another song?
Nope, that's it for tonight.
I sing another song?
That's it for tonight.
I sing another song?
That's it for
What
tonight.
if they want me to sing another song?
If they want you to, they'll ask you.
Oh, look at
Son,
him.
did you want to come and sing a song?
Your volume went down.
Where does it say that? It says, great job, Ellery. Way better than I could ever do for sure. I don't hear him asking me for another one. Really, it's your turn to sing a song, Field Guy. What do you got, Field Guy? What's your song?
It's called, well, Elvis should sing. Isn't Elvis a world-renowned singer?
Yeah, Elvis should sing.
Thank
you very much.
I'm not allowed to say the 3 words right now I want to say.
I'll sing another song.
I'm sure you will.
Sing all night.
Okay. Where's your phone?
Flynn just walked off with it.
Why?
Everybody needs my phone for stuff. I don't know why. So, what's your
Flynn,
story,
Flynn
Field
plays.
Guy? What's your story tonight?
I don't know. I have a lot of stories. But just because Elvis is here and he loves the Saints so much, I could tell.
I haven't had Elvis ever call in.
No, he doesn't. He never comes on mine. Elvis doesn't. I've never seen Elvis. He's mysterious. He dances. He dances in his boxers in Graceland.
Nice. What's the what was I reading here about Kennedy and a bear? What's that?
I have no goddamn idea. I just figured Kennedy signed with the Bears. I don't know. Maybe RFK got desperate. He wrestled a bear. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh, that I did hear something about that, where he found some roadkill. I don't think it was a current story. I think it's a story he was telling Roseanne Barr. He was telling her about this story from something that I came in on the middle of it. He was telling her a story from a while back. He came across some roadkill, was what I'd heard, and it was in pristine shape, and so he took it. They were hunting, and he took the carcass of the bear, and I think he wanted to make a bear rug out of it. Now, I don't know if it ever happened, if he ever got it done, but because I had to cut out of the story too. But did he ever get that, Sean? Did he ever get that? Let's see. He left a dead bear in the park, having seen it get hit. I thought Susie Q with the story said that he picked it up and they threw it in their truck because he brought it along with them, and he had it made into a rug or had it stuffed or something. Elvis says he left it at the park. A cub, a female.
Which park?
I don't know. That's all I know of the story. Which park was it, Elvis?
Did he go to Wrigley Park? He left the cub at Wrigley Park.
Left the cub at Wrigley Park, yeah.
Wrigley Field, Wrigley Park.
Wrigley
That
Field.
works.
See, I got from the story that he had taken it along with him. Because I thought, because he was telling the story, and they went on and they did their hunting. And so I thought, you put the dead bear. He says he put it in his vehicle and was going to skin and keep the meat. Right. That's all I remember hearing that, which made me think he that's what he did, but I don't know for sure. So it's all I know too. I saw him. He was sitting like in a kitchen chair. Roseanne Barr was standing there talking to him. I don't know if it was a backstage scene thing or it had that appearance of being something just really off the cuff. So anyway, there's that. Central Park. Yeah, bear in Central Park. There goes Field Guy.
I'm right here. Not going anywhere. I found. Wait a minute.
Elvis, I think you're right. There's probably more to the story. So.
Here, I'll give you a story. Wait, if I can find a picture in here. Lord, these pictures are old. Which story does he want?
RFK's.
I don't know who that
bear.
is.
I'm going to see if they're bear in the park.
I can't show that
Story.
picture.
Let's try that. RFK bear in the park story.
Oh.
Let's see.
Here, this is a picture for Elvis. There's an old picture of me.
RFK Jr.'s bear in the park story. 1 second. Fieldy, I got to see what you're holding up here.
Oh, just an old picture of me. From 2006.
There you are.
A bunch of old
The
pictures.
mustachioed Field Guy. Let's see. Kennedy said he and the group he was with, some of whom had been drinking, then came up with the plan to take an old bike he happened to have in his van, place the bear's carcass in Central Park to make it look like the bear had been hit by a bike, taking advantage of a recent rash of bicycle crashes in New York. That's what the whole thing says. There's got to be more to it than even that.
I don't know.
JFK admits putting dead bear cub in New York City's Central Park nearly 10 years ago. This is the decade-old question about how a dead 6-month-old female black bear cub ended up in New York City's iconic Central Park beneath an old bicycle has been answered. Independent presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. on Sunday confessed that he was behind the incident after a fact checker from the New Yorker called him to verify the story. In a video he posted on X, Kennedy said he had come across the bear in the morning when he was going falconing. A woman in a van in front of him hit and killed the bear. So I pulled over, picked up the bear, put him in the back of my van because I was going to skin the bear. And it was a very good condition, and I was going to put the meat in my refrigerator, Kennedy said. And you can do that in New York State. You can get a bear tag for roadkill bear. But the falconing day went longer than expected, and he had to go straight to dinner in the city at Peter Luger's Steakhouse, he recounted. That too ran late, and Kennedy said he realized he had to go to the airport and would not be able to go home to Westchester first. And the bear was in my car. And I didn't want to leave the bear in the car because that would have been bad, he said. So then I thought, at that time, this was a little bit of the redneck in me. There'd been a series of bicycle accidents in New York, and they just put in the bike lanes. So a couple of people were getting killed, and there was every day, the people badly injured every day was in the press. And he said, I wasn't drinking, of course, but people were drinking with me who thought this was a good idea. Kennedy mentioned that in addition to the dead bear cub, he had an old bike in his car that somebody had asked me to get rid of. I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park. We'll make it look like it got hit by a bike. Kennedy recalled. What he did not expect was the media attention the stunt would attract. The next day, it was like on every television station. He was the front page of every paper, and I turned on the TV, and there was like a mile of yellow tape, and there were 20 cop cars. There were helicopters flying over it, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And then there were some people on TV and Tyvek suits with gloves on lifting up the bike, and they were saying they were going to take this up to Albany to get it fingerprinted, he said. And I was worried because my prints were all over that bike. In another odd twist, one of the reporters who wrote about the mystery at the time was Kennedy's niece and John F. Kennedy's granddaughter, Tatiana Schlossberg, who was working for the New York Times, a social media user noted. So many questions remain unanswered, she wrote. How did the bear end up in Central Park? Was there foul play involved? Did she die in the park or was she dumped there? Kennedy said that luckily the story had died off until the New Yorker reported on it and asked him to verify it for an article about him and his campaign in the magazine. It's going to be a bad story, Kennedy predicted. The New Yorker article published on Monday included a photo of Kennedy with his hand in the bear cub's mouth, pretending he was being bitten. Oh, and there's the photo. Nice. Maybe that's when I got my brain worm, Kennedy said. When I asked Kennedy about the incident, he said, maybe that's where I got my brain worm, the story's author, Claire Malone, wrote. A spokesperson for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation told WCPS John Doyle that RFK Jr. will not face charges in the 2014 incident, saying that the investigation did not uncover sufficient evidence to determine if violations occurred. The statute of limitations was 1 year, which has long since expired, said the spokesman. So there you go.
Whack a bear and you get off scot-free.
I guess. So that's the whole story. That's interesting, huh?
Here. I have a bunch of old pictures.
Yeah, there were a couple old pictures with it. Oh, of you. Very nice. That's you?
Yep.
Very nice.
1986.
He's showing us pictures.
I'll make those up. Now I got a bunch
Very
of old
nice.
pictures. I found a class photo. No, I was 6. I found a class photo from 89, 90.
89 and 90.
I'm right there.
There you are. How old are you? About 7 or 8?
No, I think I was 10 there.
10.
9 or 10. Why not? Here. I don't care. I'll show my old pictures. Somebody's got to embarrass me. It might as well be me.
You've got a white beard there.
It's Santa Claus.
Why does Santa Claus scare you?
Because he's an old fat man that breaks into your houses at night and gives you presents.
And why would that scare you exactly?
That wouldn't scare me.
Because Santa's scary.
What makes Santa scary?
Santa's scary.
Because he's an old fat man that breaks into your house at night, eats your cookies and milk.
You leave them for him.
Yeah, but he still eats them.
Dear Santa, here's your cookies.
Wait, who told you that Santa's a... Well, I know he's a big fat man, but who told you all of that? Where'd you hear this nonsense from?
How do you know Santa's fat?
You don't know.
Because Santa's fat.
Maybe that's just the cover story. You ever think of that?
He's an old fat man that breaks into your house at night, drinks your milk, eats your cookies, and then leaves you presents.
All right.
That's
So
weird.
we'll tell Santa not to come back.
Well, somebody leaves me presents, I'll be happy.
Is there a Santa?
Yeah, of course there is. He's on YouTube all the time.
No, we taught our kids there's no Santa. I don't want to believe in that crap.
I think
Santa's right here. There's documented proof.
There he is right there.
I sing song now.
What?
I sing song now.
You keep asking me that, and I keep saying, no, you're not getting the hint.
Well, they want me to sing song. He said that I could sing.
What song is it?
If only.
If only what?
If only. It's called If Only. There's no swear words. It's a Descendant song.
There's no swear words, Dad.
It's a Descendant song. There's no swears.
No. No, we've had enough Descendants for tonight.
Can I sing another song?
No, not
I'm
that.
asking them.
You don't get your old man copyrighted.
They're not your boss.
Keep singing them Disney songs. 3 years from now, they're going to be like, this is owned by Disney.
That's right. That's right. I got a copyright hit.
That's why I don't sing.
In my head, should've let my
I said no. You're doing it anyway.
a million
So I'll sing with you.
I'm going to show Santa again. I'm going to find Santa. Where's Santa?
All right, that's enough of that.
a million thoughts in my
I can't show all these
No.
pictures because they're
I
funny.
don't want you to sing that song right now, okay? Because I'm done with the Descendants. Do you really need me to explain why?
I won't do this.
When I've said no 5 or 6 times?
I won't do it this time.
You know they made a new one of those movies?
Number 4 now.
When I go to CC's, they have, it's a pizza place. They have the sports thing. And where I sit, it's the Disney Channel. And they had some music video. It's called the movie Descendants, The Rise of Red.
That's the recent one.
And I'm just like, okay. And it's all these girls, and one of them dancing in solid red, and the screen's red. And I go, okay, well.
And to me, it's one of those things where they found another outlet to tap more out of the same theme. So,
Oh, yeah. Oh, it'll keep going.
as long as people buy tickets and buy their stuff, it'll keep
Yeah.
going. But I want to see some new stuff.
Hell, this has to be old. It's Kodak. It's the back of it.
There you go.
This has to be me, only because of the date.
Well, there you are. Look at you. 1980. May of 1980.
So that make me 3 months old.
Wow. Rainey was born April 29th of 1980. So.
I got a bunch of them in here.
Well, Fieldy, we're going to start wrapping up here. As much as I want to see your pictures.
But it was
You know
story
what?
time, so I figured why not? Pictures are stories.
Pictures are stories.
Okay, I sing song now.
1,000 words. So, folks, that's what we're going to do for tonight. We're going to be done. Thank you, Ellery, for singing a couple of songs for us.
I'm a rebel, I'm a menace, I'm a one-girl riot. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Slipping through the shadows like I'm ultra fire. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hearts on the walls, but no love in the streets. I protect with protection. The girls got eat. Yeah, someone on my shoulder and it won't be quiet.
Pearl Jones,
Yeah.
you're late. You almost didn't make it, Delaney.
This has been recorded.
Okay,
Live
wrap it.
audience.
Wrap it.
Go berserk.
Wrap it. You're done. We're done. We're going to get out of here.
Tear it down.
Field guy,
Take this town
we'll see you
red,
next time.
red, red.
Have a
See
good
you
night,
later.
brother. Thanks for coming in. Tell your photo stories.
Whoa,
Everybody else, thanks for being here.
whoa,
Thanks for being part of the program.
Sir, yes, sir.
And
The
we
queen's
will
not
see
there,
you
sir.
maybe
That's for
with
sure.
Wendy
Spread it
tomorrow
around. You
for
follow
Robertson
it down.
Robertson.
Fist in the air.
And if not, we'll see you again on Wednesday. So all of you, thank you for being here. Live long and prosper.